Now, you know when things are serious, when EU leaders they say they have a roadmap to solving this crisis. Oh, and you've brought in the solution.
Herman Van Rompuy he's posted the solution online. Quite an unusual step for the President of the European Council to do that before a big summit, but he's essentially set out his vision for what is nothing short of a United States of Europe. Things like Brussels having oversight of budgets, a banking union, the whole lot is in this 7-page document. Carl Brown has been going through it for us.
In the search for a solution to Europe's financial crisis, talk has turned to an ambitious federal system that would transform the economic bloc.
For a genuine economic and monetary union to be established, I think we need a banking union, a fiscal union, and further steps towards a political union.
European Commission President Manuel Barroso is co-author of a 7-page plan, urging the Eurozone to grant an EU treasury. It would be a supranational authority with the power to demand changes to national budgets. The plan proposes setting up a single supervisor with the ability to oversee all 8,000 European banks. It also calls for the eventual creation of Eurozone bonds, which would pool debt and reduce risk to individual countries. But Germany remains opposed to Eurobonds for fear that Berlin would pay for the debts incurred by profligate economies.
Let me tell you here that fiscal union is about much more than just euro bonds or stability bonds. It also means more coordination in taxation policy and a much stronger European approach to budgetary matters at national and European level.
Most Eurozone members have flouted their pledge to keep deficits to below 3% of their GDP. Under the new plan, governments would have to seek prior approval before allowing their budgets to exceed EU limits. Such measures may go beyond what some members are willing to accept.
Well, it's all grand design, Stuart. Of course, a very ambitious plan, as we heard from President Barroso there. They're talking about nothing less than transforming Europe, and essentially in future, what they want is everything to be centralised, if you like, from Brussels. So you wouldn't get this squabbling in the run-up to these EU summits. You certainly wouldn't get this deadlock when it comes to bailing out countries. One organisation, if you like, in Brussels would have control over it all. The problem, as always, Germany stands in the way. And you've got Chancellor Angela Merkel, who she's not uncommitted to all of these things, but she wants countries like Greece and Italy to get their financial houses in order, get those austerity programmes fully entrenched to make sure that they never again allow their budgets to run haywire like they have done over the past 10 years. The language, you know these EU summits are getting serious when the language starts to get a bit dramatic. Angela Merkel has been reported as saying that there will be no pooling of debt as long as I live. What she means by that is German taxpayers being put on the hook for countries like Greece and Italy. We know already that that's causing some consternation in Germany among voters. She is very much aware of that. And yet you have other camps, people like Italy's Mario Monti, for example, who want a solution in place by the time the markets open on Monday morning. And that was very much in the mind of the Italian Prime Minister when he addressed Parliament on Monday.
As far as I'm concerned, I am ready to go beyond the scheduled limit of the European Council meeting and the European Summit, and to work through Sunday evening if necessary, so that when the markets open on Monday, we can deliver a robust growth package and a vision for the future of integration that will satisfy the markets.
Yeah, sounds to me like we're getting ready for another red-eye summit, leaders kind of staggering in and out of marathon negotiations in the very small hours of the morning.
Well, you remember Nicolas Sarkozy coming out at around 4 o'clock in the morning, I think it was, during that make-or-break summit back in last December. And you might expect these leaders to go on into the small hours with the Italian Prime Minister saying he's effectively ready to stay for the weekend if he has to. The problem is these leaders just don't have that kind of time. Remember, it took the best part of 2 years to get this bailout fund that we've talked about so much off the ground. Here, you're talking about something much more radical, transforming Europe and centralising it. This is a huge, huge quiet revolution, if you like, that might take months and months at best to try and hammer out. So I don't think we're going to see the kind of meaningful solution that these leaders want in just 2 days in Brussels.
OK, summit gets underway Thursday. You've got a little bit of optimism for us.
Yeah, the Asian markets at least seem to have turned things around. In fact, they've snapped a 4-day losing streak. You can see there all of those indices now in the green, with the Hang Seng up around 1% and the Nikkei not too far behind.
Bring you a little bit of company news now, starting with News Corp, in fact, whose shares have closed more than 8% up. That was after Rupert Murdoch's conglomerate confirmed it's splitting the business in half. It means creating a new business for lucrative TV and film ventures like 20th Century Fox and Sky. Another company will contain Murdoch's newspapers. They've suffered, of course, from declining print revenues and the fallout from last year's UK phone hacking scandal.
The Nigerian government says it's losing $1 billion a day from oil thieves. The oil-rich African state's finance minister told the Financial Times that stolen oil caused sales to drop by 17% in April. It's estimated that stolen oil and the fraud over fuel subsidies cost Nigeria a total of around $14 billion in 2011.
And Yahoo has ditched its provider of online music to team up with Spotify. The search engine wants to take advantage of Spotify's more advanced service that allows borrowers to play any song without leaving the site they're on. It means the end of a partnership with Music Rhapsody and the latest attempt by Yahoo to diversify away from its original business.
Now, here in France, raising the minimum wage was one of President François Hollande's crowd-pleasing pledges when he was on the campaign trail for that election. And to stress the importance of that measure, he made it his first piece of parliamentary business. It's a modest rise in the minimum wage, but it still troubles those who think that French business needs to make itself just that little bit leaner and reduce payrolls in order to stay competitive in Europe. Caterina Vitozzi has the story.
15 one-way Paris Underground tickets, 17 litres of milk from a supermarket, or 2 trips to the cinema. That's what France's lowest earners will now be able to afford extra each month. On Tuesday, the new socialist government raised the minimum wage by 2%. In the pocket, that's an extra €21.50. Still not enough for some.
€20 extra isn't much. Really, it should be €100 at least.
However, the government's confident that raising the minimum wage 0.6% above the rate of inflation is just enough to boost purchasing power without affecting employment.
It's enough for those that need it without destabilising our economy, especially small businesses and manufacturing.
Before he lost the presidential election, Nicolas Sarkozy had said he wanted to make France's labour markets more competitive, cutting payroll costs for business owners. But Hollande's decision will make France's minimum wage the 4th highest in Europe. Luxembourg is top, followed by the Netherlands. Germany doesn't have a minimum wage. Although millions of workers there got a 5% pay rise last month, Germany's labour costs are still cheaper than here in France. French employers' unions had been concerned that wage rises could increase unemployment, but even they've accepted the change.
We think the rise is a reasonable one. It was a pledge that the President and his team made and have honoured. So we will bow to that democratic decision.
A democratic decision that Hollande and his ministers believe can go hand in hand with getting the country's budget deficit under control.
And just before we go, it's adieu to the French forerunner to the internet.
We were just talking about this, weren't we, Stuart?
Yeah.
I think if you live outside France, you'd probably wonder what the Minitel is. But if you've been on a French homestay or French exchange in the 1990s, you might have seen one. This is France Telecom, who are officially retiring these devices now. They're being recycled. That's the idea. You can see they're being prepared for a bit of recycling. This was essentially, as you say, a forerunner to the internet. Back in the 1990s. Incredibly, they're still around, still being used, but they are now officially being taken offline, as it were. I think the only place you'll probably find one now is maybe a retro antique shop.
Excellent. I want that job, smashing them up. Owen, thank you very much, Owen, with the business. More from Claire after the break.